We can have our quorum. You're welcome to bring that chair, but we should probably all be in front of the camera. All right, so I'll open the meeting at 7:02. And should have done this already, but I did bring up our agenda, which is really simple.
Nice, simple agenda.
Yes.
Yes.
I think there's one item,
Two items, I believe. But, all right, so we opened it. Draft meeting minutes is next, so that's going to be these.
Like I said, gold stars, but I suggest 2 fixes, but I'll let you guys find them first. Not gonna remove your fun.
Oh, I see one. Line 34, MK should be megawatt. So MW.
M what? Oh, MW?
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't have caught all that technical jargon. Did you catch it?
Stated he did not have the exact numbers in front of him.
Line 25 in front needs to be spaced out.
There's 2 words. David Pilot.
Are you taking notes on this?
It's recording.
Okay.
In front. It's in front, a new word.
Line 26 should be large S, not large S.
Oh, you're really going crazy with it.
I mean, you told me we had to find them. So.
Yeah,
Well, none of you's pointed out the error that I was pointing. That's pretty glaring. There's a good one.
He's well on his, well, you got the town of Webster right.
And now 2 that I would change.
I'm finding in the newspaper that nobody seems to know the difference between using less and fewer. Really annoys me. That's too unimportant to do anything about.
Line 29 in lieu of taxes instead of taxed.
Are you
And
still on the first page?
To the town instead of played.
What?
Yep, I'm still on the first page.
In lieu of text.
We're gonna have a conversation with our grammar wizard. Unless I printed the wrong copy. Sounds like I printed the whole copy. Or I forgot to save it after I made the changes.
The other one would be that, and this is a couple places in that first section, instead of reached out to the state, it was reached out to Concord. Though Concord had done the research and provided
What
much of
line
it
are
to
you
the
on?
state.
Right.
This is, for example, line 31 on the first page.
So it wasn't a state agency that you got the information from?
No, it was Concord's energy and it was Concord's pilot person, basically.
Okay,
Concord's
so the
tax
city
wizard.
of Concord.
Yeah, City of Concord's tax wizard, and they had all of the information.
Okay, so it's the city of Concord. That's a fix.
There's an extra received in line 37 for what Dan was asking about.
Received.
I think I put the wrong
No,
one.
down was receiving
I think I printed the wrong minutes. Well,
currently.
they're the right minutes, but they're not the second edit.
Oh.
Either that or I forgot to save it after I made the second set of changes. That's always a possibility too. Normally it's not this bad.
Item 44 should probably be receive instead of review.
I should get you to edit all my documents, man.
I used to do, as part of my quality assurance job, one of the things that I used to do was edit and update manuals for software projects. So I did a lot of copy type correction.
Well, you're good at it, that's for sure.
And the minutes will state that I was crucified in the editing of the minutes.
Check with legal. How do you check with legal?
I assume you got 146, right?
Are you still on the first page?
Yeah.
I kept going on.
Yeah.
I assume that should have been Lou, not Lie, right?
Oh, yep.
In
So
lieu,
I
line
think-
46 first should be
In
in
lieu
lieu
of
of
land
Is that
land
the
use
one that
change
you were-
tax.
No,
That wasn't
I
it?
didn't even get that far. I just noticed two things that I would change. But nobody's picked up on the big one.
oh,
It's glaring. It's really bad. It's on multiple pages. There's your hint.
I read too fast.
Ah. Well, the date's right in one place, but not the other in the
There
header.
it is. The meeting was not in April.
See, he had to tell me that it was in multiple places, because I looked at the date first,
It's
but
not
I
in
looked at the
April.
date in the actual
That other header was
text,
not corrected.
not the header.
And my other change is the way I did the motion was done. It makes it sound like all the minutes were approved as amended, but the other two were approved as written.
Hmm,
So I wanted to clarify that in the motion.
okay.
Those were the two I found in my own minutes.
Well, they're good ones, I found.
Hmm. That reminds me I need to talk about briefly the nameplate value. So I had a conversation with them about that to clarify it. So don't let me forget to mention that.
Okay.
Okay. Motion by Craig to recommend the amendment of the unit to the select board and the commission that the names be changed to the appropriate county. And so the
39, you have
the
to add an S
names are
stipulation.
expected to stay that way and be appropriate.
Hmm.
Um, All right, so I think that probably covers that.
So we're approving as amended.
Anybody else with other additional amendments?
No.
All right, so I would move that we accept the meeting minutes from Tuesday, August 31, 2021 as amended.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that moves us on to general business, which was the pilot discussion. We've all been here for that at this point. Are there, the first thing that I will say is I did have a quick discussion with Mike Kaplan of Olivewood Energy. Aid asked about the names, and he said that those are correct in the way that they are based on the legal entity names. And then the Second thing was the nameplate values. I was slightly incorrect in the way that I stated something and the understanding, and that is that the megawatt value of the project is indeed what we are, charging the pilot on. But that is not necessarily the nameplate value of the panels. And that came up because of the panel upgrade discussion. And the reason for that is because there are 3 locations that you can be limited to your amount. One is panel nameplate, the second is inverter nameplate, and the third is the nameplate value that is allowed to go into the grid through their interconnection agreement. And so any of those 3 can limit that amount. So, for example, if they've got everything and they're running their interconnection at maximum capacity and a panel breaks, if they can't get that same panel again, and they get one that's a little bit higher quality, a little higher capacity, and replace it, that does not necessarily increase the pilot because they're not allowed to increase their generation.
Well, of those 3 entities that you mentioned, any one of them is the limiting factor.
Correct.
So, I mean,
You're not allowed to increase their generation?
Well, if you increase one of them, then you have to increase the others,
Okay,
right?
yeah,
Mhm.
I guess so.
so,
And if they're not, so the grid may actually have you're not allowed to put more out than X amount at a given time, on this particular line, because it will be a saturated line with the other power coming down it. So things of that nature can also affect it, but that's all within their agreements. So
So for our purposes, what do we do? I mean, what's the,
basically, the way that this is written does the intent that we were hoping for, which is if anything in the project grows and they start generating more, we get paid more. But if just because something is broken and they replace it with a better, newer version, doesn't necessarily mean we get paid more.
Right,
Unless they're
because
using
unless-
the newer capability.
Okay.
right?
So,
I mean, it seemed like the limiting factor would be what's their capacity to put it on the line.
most of the time, yes.
That's the main limiting factor,
Mhm.
so.
So
I mean,
I
they
wanted to clarify that after having the discussion, as they decided that since we talked about the pilot, they wanted to watch the meeting, and so they had those few comments for us. Any other further discussion, questions, comments on the pilot from any of you or our public?
No.
All right.
When are they gonna
So-
start putting them up?
So I'll get to that. That's actually number 2 is the timeline update.
Oh,
But the first thing was we were going to then look at the draft letter to the select board that Craig was going to do up. Do you have that with you or
No,
not?
I
Okay.
spaced it out.
Well, it's not like you've had anything else to handle with the planning board and your public hearings. So we will certainly be fine
I
with
can-
that.
Well, let me just, maybe we can discuss it
Mhm.
now. right?
Sure.
But we're basically going to say we approve the pilot agreement as approved by the committee.
Mhm.
And we recommend that the select board approves it, that go with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what the motion was that was made.
Yeah.
I would suggest that the letter have one note in it that it was not a unanimous vote, because Dan wanted the additional information and still wants the additional information from my discussion with him right before this, as he was
Yeah.
unable to come.
Yeah.
And they are not by they I mean Olivewood, says they are not in a position where they feel comfortable sharing the projected figures, since they still have several contracts that would need to be ironed out before they can come to an accurate or even a semi-accurate number.
Yeah, which brings up the question of, down the road, how do you get that information? I mean, suppose we get it now, it changes next year, the year, you're gonna run into that same problem of how do you get that info?
That's actually the point of the way that the pilot's written, is that we don't need that info.
Yeah, that's why I support it.
So, in any case, did we want to have Russ write something up quick so that we have one that we can sign, or did we want to wait and then just have people come in and sign it on their own in town
It's
hall
gonna take
after?
me more than 5 minutes to craft a letter. That's gonna take me a little bit, because I gotta get the language right and then look at it like 15 million times.
We can do that for you.
Get the date right, get the date right.
Because I sit there and I think about it.
All right.
You're right.
Yeah, just let us know when you've got it. And
I can just email it to everybody, and if everybody approves it, I mean, you can make a motion to say somebody can be the signer for it.
Okay.
Yeah, that works. I mean, it's gonna be a fairly simple.
Yeah, I figure it's a few sentences, so.
That's basically what it's gonna be.
Okay.
And while I obviously am here in supporting it, I think it would probably be appropriate for me not to sign a letter to myself, so. That is, though I'm also completely comfortable signing a letter saying that I am recommending this to the rest of the select board, so either way we do it is fine by me.
Well, I think you need the quorum, right? I mean,
Well, we don't need a,
Well, I would say.
Yeah.
I would say that we should at least have four out of the 6
yeah, that's true.
signing this, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So,
Well, people can come in over time as well,
well,
so.
can Dan, because he's not here tonight?
I don't think he wants to sign.
Well, right, he didn't want to sign it anyway, but,
Yeah, so he might sign it if it says that overall the committee is recommending it, but it wasn't unanimous. But if he doesn't, that's fine as well. Either way reflects his opinion. I would expect that probably Sue would come sign it as well. But she wanted to see a draft of it first, so. All right, so why don't we work on that, and then just, as we all come into town hall, we can sign it over the next week or so, and so I'd like to have that letter for our select board meeting at the department head, so we can announce that it's there. And then I'm not sure what the exact process will be once we have that. There may or may not be another public hearing that takes place for that pilot, based on it either being a generic update of what already existed, or based on it being significant changes, we may decide to hold a public hearing anyway. So we'll look into that and do the appropriate thing at that point, but I'd like to have that so we have the letter to
So
state.
you want us to come in to the town office and sign? I'm sorry, I'm just
Yeah.
organizing my life.
Just to sign it at some point in time before
when Russ has it.
before
Yeah,
next
I'm gonna get it
Monday.
drafted tomorrow.
Before next Monday, okay.
Yeah, because next Monday will be our department head select board meeting. It's the big one that everyone
Next, you
sees.
mean Monday the 4th or Monday the 11th?
The 4th.
The 4th, okay.
Yeah, because I don't want people to think that this is something being kind of swept or pushed into the side meetings that people don't attend or look at or anything like that. So I want it to be really kind of straight front and forward.
Get this fly out of here. All right.
All right, so that moves me on to the second order, which is the timeline update. Basically, this is probably it for us for a while. They hope that they will have some more of the civil engineering style stuff later this year, but probably first quarter of next year.
So this is for the MOU.
For the MOU, yeah. So, which is really the only other thing that we're involved with. So I don't think that we really need to meet the next several months. If they happen to dump a, hey, here's everything, I'll send it out and schedule at our normal time for whatever the next month is. But I would not expect meeting until probably January or February again,
Okay.
as a result. To continue that, they are hoping that they are expecting that first half of next year, hopefully within that first quarter, but first half of next year, they will start the SEC application process. And then they are expecting a preparation 2023 and a final construction, everything's finished 2024.
Wow. Takes a long time.
So that is the current, they wanted to do things faster, but everything everywhere and everyone they're working with is all tied up and going slower. So rather than lots of things happening all at once, they're doing more serialization of it. So it's one thing than the next.
It's a big project. They
So,
can't do it all at once.
well, a lot of it is also that people that do that sort of work are doing it everywhere. And so rather than, we've got these three things, we're gonna run through the process, and if one of them causes a change, we'll go back and do it. They don't have the time to do that, so it's one after another. So that's kind of the timeline update.
That's good. I was gonna ask about that.
So that's what I got out of the conversation that I had with Michael Kaplan a few days ago of Olive Wood. Any other questions or comments on that?
So they're waiting for us to, well, first, they will finish us with the stuff that we need for the move, right? The MOU. And then once we meet with our criticism of the move, right? Then when that's finally accepted by us and them, then it goes to the SEC.
No, actually.
Oh.
So the next thing would be like the start of where access roads are gonna be, where fencing will be, panels and stuff. We'll get that kind of civil design. That's not actually the MOU, but that's where we can start the discussions of the portions that will be in it. They won't have actually provided a draft MOU, and I mean, we can start writing some of one based on the drafts we had and started writing. Or we can wait on theirs, either way. The MOU does not have to be agreed upon when they go into the SEC application process. But for the MOU to become enforceable, it will need to have been agreed upon before the SEC does the final approval. Because their final approval would be and binding to this memorandum of understanding. And so we have time in there to work on it, but yeah, I expect that once we start having the real design, then things will probably start to move fairly quickly for us. Then we'll go through that MOU process and the drafts and working with legal, and after that, it'll basically be sit and wait until the SEC says that there's a hearing that either we can decide to attend or decide to send our letter to or whatever. And that's kind of the whole process for the town. Other than after that, sitting and waiting for construction and whatever's in the MOU and then collecting a check from the pilot.
So we're not expecting a check then until 24, right?
No, when the as part of the pilot, if you remember, there's a construction period.
Oh.
And the construction period matches the payments of the first year. So I would expect that we would probably see a check 23 when construction actually happens. It's possible that there would be something ahead of that because they may do some pre-site work for some clearing or similar during a winter type season, so that they affect less of the habitat and the habitat for the species like the bats and so on during the period where they're vulnerable. because they wouldn't be there. So there's a possibility of that, so maybe there would be payments ahead of time, but it's basically when they start construction, that's when we start getting payments.
Thanks.
Any further comment or questions?
Nope.
All right, that's about it, and that brings us to any further business, which is our last item. Anything anybody wants to know, question, ask, or find out about the solar project? All right, thank you everybody for
All right.
coming. I did say it would be short and sweet.
Short meeting, yep.
So I would move to adjourn this meeting at 7:28.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.